Ordinary life ran on calendars and badge beeps. I worked payroll on the 12th floor while my husband handled accounts on 6, a professional distance framed as respect. We rode in together, traded mugs in the break room, and compared notes on traffic like co-authors of a small book. Evenings belonged to our daughter's spelling lists, leftover pasta, and a couch shaped by two people leaning toward the same show. Weekends were errands and grocery runs with receipts folded into a bowl by the door, proof that the mundane could be tender. In staff town halls, we stood apart but caught each other's eye, a private signal inside public order. Our building's glass atrium reflected us into multiples, and I believed every version looked steady. I wore my keycard on a ribbon our daughter decorated with stars, a childish charm against office storms. Love, I thought, could be maintained like systems, with updates, backups, and routine audits. Small disturbances arrived like formatting errors in a stable spreadsheet. He started staying late for end-of-quarter pushes, coming home with fluorescent fatigue and a softness that looked borrowed. A new lanyard appeared with a sleek card holder he called a vendor freebie, and the scent on his jacket shifted from soap to something powdery that lingers near elevator mirrors. He laughed at emails I never saw and used nicknames for teams I did not recognize. On Fridays his shoes felt heavier, as if weekends carried secret mileage. The dog waited at the door at hours that used to be hours, confused by footsteps that missed the rug. He began speaking about creative constraints, though his job ran on spreadsheets, not mood boards. None of it warranted a scene. It simply thinned the air. I watered plants twice, straightened the mail, and told myself pressure bends habits. The spreadsheet of our days still balanced, but the cells held whispers. First suspicions grew from coincidences repeating. He mixed up meeting floors and said 15 when he meant 13, but legal lives on 15, not sales. A second coffee cup with lipstick-colored residue rode home in our passenger footwell. He said a barista handed the wrong lid. His playlist shifted to acoustic covers featured in the lobby cafe, and he started quoting a line about canvases and constraints as if it were company scripture. My calendar invites to lunch went unanswered while his status dot glowed green through noon. He wore a new shirt with tailor's tacks still hiding in a seam, the kind of oversight that hints at hurried joy. Even the dog learned to stare at the garage as if the car could apologize. I wrote the dates in a pocket notebook labeled now and practiced breathing like an athlete preparing for a race she never wanted to run. Tangible clues prefer timestamps. Our shared card logged identical snack bar charges at 3:14 on consecutive Tuesdays, 1 minute after a design sprint calendar blocked breathing exercises. A rideshare receipt landed in the family email from an address 2 blocks from our building at 11:49 p.m., the exact time he claimed finance's printers jammed. Laundry gathered a small galaxy of glitter that did not match our daughter's school crafts. He brought home a ceramic mug painted with abstract waves, stamped on the bottom with a studio located beside the design annex. His calendar filled with gray blocks titled Planning, a neutrality that multiplied like rabbits. A screenshot autosave to our cloud showed a whiteboard corner reading rockets, a team our company didn't field. Individually, each line could shrug. Together they formed a map I pretended not to see. I printed statements, slid them into a folder, and named it simply, Office. Verification required proximity without spectacle. I scheduled lunch on his floor under the pretense of payroll syncs and wandered through open seating patterned like a board game. His desk wore a new plant with a ribbon I hadn't tied. A pastel sketch of our skyline peeked from beneath a keyboard tray, annotated with initials not mine. I sat in the atrium and watched colleagues orbit, studying who lingered at the espresso cart and who owned the laughter that relaxed him. He floated toward the design pod at 11:20 with a gait I recognized from early courtship, the looseness of someone expected and welcomed. From the balcony I saw a shadow of two people sharing one monitor, shoulders aligned in unhurried rhythm. I didn't photograph anything. I memorized angles, desk toys, and the particular confidence of a person moving inside a story already underway. Then I went back to my floor and closed payroll like a valve. Confirmation arrived on a Thursday, polished for executives. I presented a forecast in a windowed room while, across the glass corridor, a brand review unfolded. My husband's voice carried a new warmth as he described a pilot that would live in the wild, language he never used at our table. When the meetings ended, I gathered papers slowly enough to see him and the designer pause at the fire stairs, pause again, then take them instead of the elevator, a detour chosen for privacy, not speed. Later, a project recap posted to the internal feed showed a candid of the design team's celebration. A hand reached into the frame wearing the watch I had given him for our 10th anniversary. I stopped needing explanations. Affection had found a new desk, and my marriage had been repurposed as context. I printed the recap, slid it into the folder, and drove home in silence. Immediate fallout sounded like small decisions that obeyed gravity. I finished my shift, picked up our daughter, and built dinner from simple ingredients that respected exhaustion. After bedtime, I arranged receipts, calendar prints, and a short plan on the kitchen table. The plan chose safeguards over spectacle, separate bedrooms, communication limited to parenting and bills, and an HR appointment to request a departmental transfer for me. When he arrived, I described what I knew using dates and locations and told him the guest room would be his until we formalized separation. I did not stage a tribunal. I set parameters. I called my sister to host a sleepover, messaged the school about pickup changes, and turned off notifications not related to emergencies. The house shrank into something safer, like a map with unmarked regions finally crossed out. Morning came, and the plan still held. I slept briefly and woke steady. Cutting ties began with screen hygiene. I revoked calendar sharing, set new passwords, and removed photo access that allowed casual borrowing of our past. I blocked his colleague after preserving messages for counsel, not as punishment but as a firewall. HR listened without curiosity, thanked me for clarity, and moved my desk to another floor within the week, reminding me I could request remote days when needed. I changed the front door code and told 2 friends who could be trusted with tasks rather than gossip. Our daughter's routine stayed boring on purpose. Pancakes on Friday, library on Tuesday, the dog asleep by 9. I boxed sentimental items for later sorting and archived photos instead of deleting them, choosing documentation over erasure so memory could be handled on my timetable. Boundaries did not heal anything that week. They simply kept the injury from traveling farther, the way a tourniquet buys time while the body remembers how to clot. Legal and practical logistics translated betrayal into dates and signatures. The attorney drafted a separation agreement with temporary support, debt division, and a parenting plan specifying neutral handoffs beneath bright lobby cameras. I opened a checking account in my name and rerouted direct deposit, then listed essential bills in a spreadsheet color-coded for due dates and confirmation numbers. Insurance beneficiaries changed. The mortgage servicer annotated our file. I requested retirement statements and stored copies in a fireproof box with passports and the deed. Calendars shifted into custody blocks described in plain, enforceable language. HR updated emergency contacts, and my badge was reissued with a new access profile. I scheduled therapy and placed the appointment on the same calendar that once held anniversaries. Stability arrived as case numbers, receipts, and passwords belonging only to me. Each completed form closed a drawer that had been hanging open for months, dangerously loose, and the house exhaled like a system finally patched. Kids and family dynamics needed honesty without weight. We told our daughter that grown-ups sometimes keep promises badly and would now live in 2 homes, keeping her routine steady and her calendar simple. Her questions stayed practical, orbiting lunches, bedtime readers, and who attended Saturday games. I handed her a magnet schedule to shuttle between fridges, giving control room to travel in small, safe ways. Teachers learned enough to watch for distraction. Teammates' parents offered rides without requesting details. At exchanges we kept tones clipped and civil, proof that politeness can be a life jacket. I refused to export adult pain into kid spaces and banned office names from our living room. The dog adapted, rotating beds like a diplomat. Some nights she crept into my room and fell asleep to the sound of the humidifier, a white noise that flattened edges. We woke most mornings intact, which counted as progress. Rebuilding arrived in errands disguised as competence. I replaced the porch light he always meant to fix and learned the latter's balance. I reset a chirping smoke detector, scheduled a physical, and finally filled the toolbox with more than sentiment. I rearranged the living room so sightlines didn't argue with memory and sold the chair shaped by absence. At sunrise I circled the lake, not to outrun grief but to practice finishing loops I set for myself. A weekend finance course taught reconciled columns that breathed like order. I opened a savings account named Future Repairs and moved small amounts with private pride. Friends who stayed brought soup instead of strategies, and I learned to ask for specific help. The folder of evidence went into a drawer. The point had shifted from proving harm to practicing care. Identity followed behavior, quiet and durable. Sleep arrived on purpose. Reflection turned from autopsy to architecture. He did not accidentally fall in love at work. He constructed it, furnished it, and tried to rent its space inside our life. Trusting him wasn't foolish. It was investment in the contract we agreed to. My task now is not to edit his narrative but to author mine with margins that protect the text. Forgiveness, where it sprouts, will be a clearance within me that refuses to store poison, not a shortcut back to what broke. I will be civil at exchanges and precise in emails. I will keep our daughter's world boring on purpose and my boundaries visible without apology. When the building's atrium mirrors us into multiples, I see only one of me moving forward, the person who trusts her instruments. The door at home locks with a clean click, and the calendar fills with things I can keep.